Standing on the side of the stage listening to Ed Helms wrap up his set at Largo was the closest I'd come to having stage fright in a long time. I was pacing back and forth, my heart pounding. I had an opening line that I knew was either going to make or break my performance. Ed Helms finished his set, then announced, "Please welcome Tig Notaro." I walked out, waving into the darkness. 9 days earlier, I was meant to be doing this very show, my regular Tig Has Friends at Largo. When I found out I had cancer and was told I had to make another appointment with an oncologist and a surgeon to learn what stage it was and to get more details. I called the owner of Largo, my longtime friend Mark Flanagan, and told him that I had just been diagnosed with cancer and was in quite a bad place. Instead of canceling the show, he suggested that I move it to the following week. I thought either he hadn't understood what I'd said or he was out of his mind. To humor him, I agreed, with the stipulation that I would be able to cancel the show up until the very last minute if I still wasn't up to it. Flanagan agreed, and I started writing. I had 9 days and took my laptop everywhere I went, meticulously writing down jokes, concepts, and moments I would share on stage. I was not in the habit of writing down my stand-up material. Normally, I had ideas, and those ideas became a few words jotted down on scraps of paper and were mostly worked out over time on stage. But I was working under a pressing deadline and the terrifying thought that I might not have much more time, that this might be my last performance. My goal had been to write a good half hour of new material for my Largo show, and being at rock bottom was turning out to be oddly fruitful. Even when I wanted to spend quality time with friends and not think about cancer, my brain operated like a busy assistant, eager to please, constantly buzzing me with ideas for a new punchline or setup. I was more focused and driven than I'd ever been. I waited 2 or 3 days after getting the generic, "Hello, you have cancer, goodbye," phone call, and then scheduled the next available appointment with my surgeon, which happened to be the day before my Largo show, which meant that I would be performing one day after finding out just how numbered my days might be. I knew I was supposed to be meeting several possible surgeons and oncologists and researching procedures I might need and even alternatives to Western medicine. I knew I was supposed to be doing something, but I still needed to work out how I felt about the sentence, "You have cancer," before I could go and find out what, exactly, it was going to mean for me. Worried friends would inquire if I'd gotten answers, and I'd hear them ask if I'd gotten cancers. Any bodily pain or discomfort was reason to believe that my cancer was spreading rapidly. I no longer trusted even a raucous sneeze to be something I could just dismiss. Then came the day I walked past my dresser and glanced at my second-grade school picture, which had always blended in with the smattering of loose change and random paper clips. I had thought of the term inner child as mumbo-jumbo therapy jargon, but as I stared at my tentative second-grade smile, I felt a direct link to that little kid. I saw clearly that this was me, the me that didn't know what I knew now, the me that couldn't imagine what was coming, the me that was pure and healthy, the me who thought I was really nailing it fashion-wise by matching a striped shirt with my slightly different striped Mork from Work suspenders. I was looking at the innocent beginning of what was quite possibly coming to an end. In the excited voice someone might use to deliver good news to a child, I picked up the picture and told my 7-year-old self, "You're going to get cancer." The day before my show, I went to meet with my surgeon, bringing Beth with me, and learned that my cancer was stage 2 and invasive and that I needed to schedule surgery immediately. As I stood outside the cancer center crying, Flanagan texted to see if I was still going to do the show. I simply texted, yes, thinking that things were not only not going up, but my life was likely ending, and I needed to perform one last time. The day of my show, I did what I always did, not prepare. I didn't review my notes from the previous 9 days. I just went about my day, totally consumed by the thought of how the show was going to go. The show was billed as my own with unannounced special guests. Anyone in the audience was there specifically to see me. They were most likely anticipating no moleste and my impression of an impersonator. Just ridiculousness. I had none of that for them. I didn't want to share my run-ins with Taylor Dane, and I couldn't relate to the silliness of hearing some audience members laugh as they said that they were paying to hear 3 minutes of squeaks and screeches from a wooden stool I was awkwardly pushing around the stage. I was going to be tossing aside my reliable jokes and winging it not only with new material but improvised material as well, all of it raw and vulnerable, and quite possibly not the least bit funny. I had outlined topics I wanted to touch on, but I still couldn't picture what my opening line would be. I knew I wanted the audience to partly feel as though I was saying something as casual as, "A funny thing happened on the way to my oncologist." But I felt torn open, and this line of thinking lacked a directness and an honesty that I was anxious to share. I tried to picture myself pulling up the very stool they wished I'd start pushing around the stage and just begin with, "Hey, so I've gone through a really rough spot in life recently, and I have some really raw material to run past you." Then I would chat with the audience about my life as if I were chatting with a friend. But every time I pictured myself doing that, I didn't like how I would essentially be apologizing ahead of time for how not thought out my stories and jokes were. I didn't want to come across as taking myself too seriously either. I needed to find the happy medium between sharing my situation openly and making light of it. I wanted it to be honest but still be a comedy show. This didn't seem totally impossible. It just seemed more likely that I would get hit by a bus in the crosswalk on the way to my show. An hour and a half before showtime, I got in the shower. This is usually when I start to have vague ideas about what I'm going to do on stage in the next hour or two. I decided that I had to shock the audience into laughter. If I just said, "I have cancer," it would not be funny. As I shampooed my hair, I thought, what if I opened my show with, "Hello, how's everyone doing tonight? I have cancer." I burst into a maniacal fit of laughter when I thought about saying this with the same delivery as the trite, "Hello, how is everyone doing tonight? Any birthdays? Anyone celebrating anything? Who's drinking tonight?" I was laughing so hard I couldn't help but wonder if this was what insanity felt like. I felt light as a feather, which I pretty much was, and intoxicated. I felt certain this was the only way to force the audience to process the bad news and then take a leap and catch up to the point that had taken me 9 days to arrive at. The point where there was a way to laugh about something so unfunny. Then I thought, no way, I can't do any of this. What if I offend someone in the audience who has cancer or knows someone with cancer? And then it dawned on me, oh yeah, I have cancer. Me. I do. Still, I wasn't sure I should do it.